Hello, my dog lovers. Hi, I have my very, very dear colleague and friend here, Dr. Jeff Feinman. And first, I would like to say hi. Hi, Jeff.
Hello, Peter.
Hi. Is it okay if I just say a few words about what I know about you, and then you'll fill in the gaps, and we'll go from there? Because I'm really looking forward to the conversation. You are a very much like-minded soul, I would say. Uh, Obviously, you're a veterinarian, but on top of that, you're a molecular biologist. I understand that you graduated, you're the same vintage, veterinary vintage in the 80s. You graduated in the 80s, like me. And, I've always felt that if there is one person that I could really trust with your intention and with the work that you do, whether the work as a veterinarian in your veterinary practice or the person who has established Holistic Actions, which is basically an entity or a website-based community of veterinarians, dog lovers, and professionals, and helping them to basically make sure that they keep their animals healthy, they keep themselves healthy. I love the fact that you kind of see the connections of us humans and animals very clearly, and that you see how it connects with health and well-being and quality of life. So I can't really find enough words to describe how much I appreciate you, and how, even though we don't always get a chance to talk to each other very much because we are all both busy and we all are busy, I always feel this really good feeling when I start talking to you, when we connect. So hello.
Hello, my friend, and I am just so super grateful to be here and for those overly kind words, but thank you. I appreciate it.
I don't think that it's overly kind. I think that my experience is that people who are the most gracious and the most impactful and amazing, they don't see their light as much as others. So, is it okay if by the way, did I miss anything in the introduction?
No,
No.
not really.
So, Dr.
Oh
Jeff.
yeah, actually, you
Did
did
I?
miss one thing, which is kind of the basis of everything, and that is my own genetic disease, which is the reason why we know that what we're going to talk about works, because it worked for me. All
I
the
was going
actions that
to. No, go ahead. There's a little bit of a delay. My apology. We'll have to deal with the internet glitches. Um, it was actually the first question that I was going to ask you about your childhood and how different it was from other people, because I think that the formation of our life starts early on. So, how different was it? How different was your childhood?
Mm. You can make me. It was me battling against my symptoms from 74 on, and that battle did touch my childhood, but I basically tried to ignore it for
Mm-hmm.
most of my life, and that's, because we're taught that symptoms and diseases are, it's a bad thing. And yeah, so, but all it really did was make me a loner, and focusing more on science stuff and school stuff. And when I began to connect with other people, later in life, as I began to embrace my symptoms, I realized that my childhood pretty much went away without much interesting stuff.
So, for those listeners who never met you, and you're describing your condition, and obviously you're very candid about it. I think that you probably notice it more than others in a way that I know you for so long that the how would I say that, the misfortune can also lead to us being greater human beings. I think that you definitely are a good example of it. That the early challenges and the suffering. Can you tell people more about what actually happened? Because uh, I haven't really heard the story much.
Oh, well, gory details in 3 minutes.
We have
I just said
three minutes are easy, easy.
when I was 14, I started having attacks. I was being attacked by symptoms that were neurologic symptoms that basically manifest as inability to speak and voluntary muscles not working properly. And these attacks would come off and on for no obvious reason. At first, started on the medical merry-go-round of diagnostics, nothing was found. Um, and it just followed me throughout life. When we met in the 90s, I had a new set of symptoms. After my internship, I developed some stress related symptoms that didn't resolve until I started doing the energy building techniques that we're gonna talk about. And that's what HA is all about, is just giving everyone the information that helped me, that I know based on our experience in the past 6 years helps pets as well.
Hmm. Mhm.
But unfortunately, it's not something that we hear about that often from our vets
How do you
or
think this
MDs.
experience made you stronger? How did it make you stronger? In which way? And also a better practitioner, better vet.
I think by giving me every day of my life more empathy. I know what it's like to be a patient. I know what it's like to have a sick kid or dog, or be
Hmm.
sick yourself, and then to have what is called post-traumatic growth, or get better
Hmm.
beyond your sickness.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's like the way the body works. In response to an acute disease, we can resolve the acute and actually get better than we were before, make our pets better than they were before.
You're one of the examples where the trauma of an experience actually has made you better. But I'm sure that there are some challenging parts that have come up in a big way. What do you think is has been the most challenging part? To be honest, I didn't really expect to talk about this part as much, but it is also lovely that you're so open to it, and that other people who are dealing with either sickness of their own or their animals, their pets are ill, they can relay and they know that we are all in it together. Absolutely. So how what was the
And
most difficult part?
the most difficult part, you may be able to hear my voice, which is challenged, but it starts in my brain. And the most difficult part is communication,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
getting out what I feel or know or want to transmit, and messaging, getting it across to anyone by voice or written down, or so messaging is, and communication is difficult. And one of the biggest compliments I ever received recently was when we were talking about this, and someone said, well, you're able to get your point across. I said,
Oh,
well,
oh,
then
absolutely, and
that's
very well. As I'm listening to you, the interesting, and I'm an ESL person, so I may, I've dealt with the language and communication challenges for the past 30 plus years. Um, as I'm listening to you, I have zero problems. Right? Sometimes we are our own zero problems to understand you, and we are our own critics. So it's interesting to see how you perceive it and how I perceive it, and compare our notes, and realizing that our notes, and this is actually life, right? That our notes are always different. Some people's notes are much better than reality, and I would say that we probably belong in the group of people whose notes are not as good as the reality. So uh,
I
we're gonna
yeah, I
go
was
to
never a good enough taker. And
you know
I really, really appreciate what you just said, that, that it's not as noticeable as, you know, it is to me and
internally,
people that
right?
are looking
Uh,
for it.
uh, we're going to go to dogs and pets and animals and veterinary medicine, but
Yeah,
before we
please,
go there,
please.
I just wanted to let you know that I too have battled with a condition that is not as visible, but I actually am a sleepwalker, and I almost died in a sleepwalking accident when I was in my early 20s. And every time I go to bed, I don't really know whether I wake
Hmm.
up the next day. So that's a
Hmm.
different kind of trauma, and also knowing how, like when I go, let's say, and sleeping, let's say in a tent or somewhere in a cabin where there are more people than just myself. Like, I'm very conscious, and I do think that when we were going to the courses. Homeopathic courses, and you were my roommate a few times. Like, I know that it's very unpleasant to let people know, hey, I may scream out of my sleep, and I may run, and so on. So stop me if you do. Now I have a dog that does it, but it's still, yeah, he's very lucky. He's gained all these benefits as an assistance dog, so he can fly all over the place, and
Nice.
but anyway, we all deal with something. And I would say that there's probably not a person in this world that is not dealing with some sort of challenge, except some of the challenges are more visible or noticeable to others or not. And that is interesting, because I think that we need to speak about what we are dealing with so other people do not feel alone. And that applies to dogs, right? We all have this idea that our dogs have to be healthy because we are professionals and they can get all the problems that other dogs get, but they may. And the humility and the humbling moments of our work too. So anyway, tell me about your work, and why did you become a vet? I know that you are a molecular biologist as well, and you were planning to go to medical school, and then something happened, and you became a vet.
Well, that's the short story is just I've always actually wanted to be a vet. Um, from a very young age, but then got into the science end and was very, very fortunate at Penn UPenn to get into medical school and vet school. And, based on my research, in cellular biology and molecular biology, and ended up in fulfilling that childhood, desire to be a vet. But I was going to be a vet doing research. And then working with dogs in my internship after vet school, I didn't ever go back, but I kept that research orientation, which is kind of what brought us here today.
So, do you think that? What do you think? It brings up a question. What do you think about research of today, medical research of today? What is your experience, and what do you see is right or wrong, or both?
What the, there's a lot of right, and I feel really, really, really privileged. I mean, we live in a time when science is to the point where it's connecting the ancient wisdom with modern science. But one of the problems is there is no connection because there is no funding for anyone to make that connection. So you've got the study of environmental medicine and molecular individuality, how our pets and how we react to different environmental stressors. We have the science of information and energy flow in the body, and put those together, and you can kind of figure out how to live to our genetic age of 120 and have our common 15-year-old Great Danes all over again. I would imagine when you were growing up as well that wasn't that unusual to have 12, 15, even 16-year-old Danes or Newfies and
Yeah, yeah.
that's not the case
Expand that.
because that information is not out there, and that's I think the biggest deficit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why places like Morris Animal Foundation this year just granted a couple $100,000 in research to study quality of life in senior dogs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Putting it all together.
Great. So I know that you've been in practice for some time, and you also established holistic actions with your colleagues, Dr. Sarah and Dr. Um,
Christina.
Christina Shambro. Oh my
Christina.
goodness,
I know,
that is
you
super
know
important.
her well.
Christina, if you're watching this, you'll forgive me, right? Because or you can slap me. Okay, that's one or the other is fine. Uh, So tell me about practice. What was your experience in practice? Why did you engage in practice? What was your driving mode, or what was the reason you entered practice instead of research? Because that's what you were planning initially.
Those connections with both the client and the patient is the main reason. Helping pets get healthy and seeing the family dynamics of of wellness, of health. And then I began to realize, as you did back in the 90s, if not before, that there is a disconnect. Veterinary medicine and medicine is really disease and symptom based instead of quality of life and happiness based.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the research is just now coming out in people, not in dogs at all yet. And again, that's why I mentioned the studies, because hopefully that'll change. The information's coming out that happiness and positiveness and positive psychology and the body's ability to work at its optimum go hand in hand. And that
You
being
know,
happy and laughter and all these things help you work better.
um, most dog lovers would understand that if we are happy, our dogs are happier, and vice versa. Um, and at the same time, I see many people blaming themselves for something that may not be their fault.
Mm.
How do you, what do you recommend in these extremes where people, on one hand, do not see the connection of their well-being and their lifestyle with the health of their dogs, and on the other hand, you have the dog lovers who blame themselves? What do you recommend? Like, how do you end up somewhere in a place that is sensible and that is not an extreme in either way?
That's an awesome and really deep question, and I will attempt to kind of touch a little piece of it, but I think just to just bring it all down to the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. And I think that you know thinking that you're always doing the best for your dog, that's just the way it is. um, and you're not causing the disease in any way for sure. But yeah, as you said at the beginning, as we get happier, they get happier, but we can make them happy even if we're not that happy. It's easy. We're very, very, privileged, and I'm super grateful to work with dogs and cats that don't have, this big brain to worry about, because that's kind of the biggest obstacle to their health is our brains, because left to their own devices, they're happy, they function, their bodies do their job, and all we have to do is take them for a therapeutic sniff walk or give them a snuffle mat or extra happy meals. Doesn't matter what kind of mood we're in or if we're feeling that we're causing problems. They're gonna respond no matter what. And that's why I mentioned the regrowth mindset, because if we keep in our minds that their bodies, like nature, are designed to heal, then all we have to really do is get out of the way. And
That is
that's
so nice.
easy.
That is so nice that you're saying all we have to do is to get out of the way. I like that. And worry less, right? On some level. And do the best we can, trying our best, as you said. Doing our best, learn the most, but also not to be frantic about looking for some sort of miraculous solution. Being really grounded. And also, you know, I get all this. And at the same time, I can kind of totally shed off the feeling that on some level, I have to work on my happiness in order for my dog to be happy. Because many people who feel down, they may not even take their dog out. Or there's some people who would say that there is this invisible vibration that our dogs and us are almost like tuning forks that kind of start vibrating on the same frequency. We so there's a I kind of I love what you said because it gives me a sense that you're bringing it all together. That you shouldn't worry too much and you shouldn't worry too little. You have to learn. You have to do your best. So if you're negligent, then it reflects and so on.
And it's so easy to do the best for a dog in that, or any animal really, in that it's just give the best food possible and clean air and water and exercise, and they'll be happy. Their
Uh,
brains are not saying, what if? Oh.
um,
The way
and
the way ours
you
do.
know me that I like to push things one more step further when it comes to even conversations. And so, I've been really interested lately in the last several months in trauma and how some of the researchers say or confirm, or they basically claim that 9 out of 10 people have gone through trauma and that it actually prevents us from being happy because there's a biological pattern, neural pathways that are generated and our responses and reactions, right? Everyone can think of, let's say, a family drama of some sort and how people get triggered. And families are always the most difficult because each trauma is long term and long lasting and they perpetuate. But there are also traumas of experience or disease or losses and all that. Do you think that people should actually say, okay, I live in the present and the past is a past and I will ignore it? Or do you think that people somehow need to process the trauma in order to be happier and then help our animals to be getting what they need to be happy? Is it pushing it aside
Yeah,
because
wow.
it's in the past or working with it?
Yeah,
Or
we're
two schools
we're
of thought.
working always. Yeah, you always push things a little beyond the flat Earth, and I love it, which is why one of the reasons I love talking to you. And yeah, embracing it, and I know that just to be true based on the fact that I ignored and tried to suppress or repress my own disabilities for most of my life, and I have never been happier than I was in two times. One is when I almost died in the hospital um, when I had undiagnosed celiac disease and I had to be carried in and put on double IVs. And yeah. And then after that, I was better than I was before. But now, knowing that where symptoms lie in the context, I feel happier than ever. And I think that actually the opposite of what you're saying, which has been known, in psychology for a long time, as far as making the grooves and our bodies hold on to the pain of the trauma. is the phenomenon known as post-traumatic growth. And that's what we're talking about, the growth mindset, the regrowth
Mhm.
mindset.
Mhm.
That whatever your earlier trauma is, whatever trauma is suffered by your animals, they can get better and maybe even get better than they were before.
Um, I like that. I like the idea that you grow from the trauma, and that's actually and I look at people that I admire, including yourself and others. I think that those people who are really great in what they're doing or make an impact on the world or in the world, they actually had to go through trauma. Otherwise, they wouldn't be who they are now.
Mm.
And I really like that. So tell me about your current work. I know that you have established holistic actions. So Dr. Christina and Dr. Sarah. And what are you? What? Tell me about it. How did it happen? Um, and what is your goal? And would you like the future to be for holistic actions? So how did it happen first?
Uh, Thank you so much for asking. It happened in 2000. Well, we as veterinarians, as doctors, a big part of our job is, the docere, the Latin of doctor is teacher. And a big part of our job is to teach our clients, the way to keep their pets healthy and manage the diseases when they come on. So in 2016, I taught a live class here in Newtown, Connecticut, on that framework, which also happens to be the framework of homeopathy. And at the end of the series of 6 classes, or whatever it was, I asked everyone, what do you want to do next? And they said, well, we'd like to get weekly or even more often support, and we'd like to hear more about this because nobody's vet was talking about that. And that is when 2016, when the idea was born, and we started doing the webinars and connecting all the pieces. And HA exists really to connect those pieces that are already out there. And we're talking about little pieces like this book I grew up with from the 60s, which is
A
called
natural
Anatomy of an
growth.
Illness. And instead of Anatomy of an Illness, it's Anatomy of Wellness.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
And we know from books like Last Year's Breath and other work connecting ancient wisdom with modern science that this can all be done, and HA exists to share that kind of information for pets because, unfortunately, as you know, we as veterinarians only really can share or only commonly share double-blind, placebo-controlled studies, that are accepted by the universities or that have been, well
Mm-hmm.
researched. And unfortunately, quality of life medicine and things that we talk about every day with our clients, are not part of the conventional model, but they are part of holistic actions. And our goal is 1 million people empowered with this information by 2025.
Nice. So we're gonna work on helping you to bring these numbers up. I hope everyone who's listening, holisticactions.com, is it right? Holisticactions.com. And you'll get a lot of information. You get a lot of value. You can sign up for a free membership. You can also get the other kinds of membership. I think it's gold membership and also all access membership. And it's very reasonable for um, the value that you get and also the information that can save you not only your dog's health and protect your dog's health or your cat's health, your pet's health, but also increase the knowledge and being able to share it with others. So we all like to be useful. So not only learn for yourself, but also for others, and spread the news and spread the knowledge. So
And
is it okay
I
if I go ahead? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I really appreciate the plug, and everyone should sign up for a free membership because they get the fundamentals, the 101 course for free with all the info that really talks about what we're discussing today.
Um, you know, when there is a when there is a client coming with a problem or disease, I know that they can email you or they can ask you questions, but what would you generally recommend? Let's say you have a dog with inflammatory bowel disease. Uh, what would you recommend to client to do? Like, what is the process? Like, not necessarily, in our conversation, but 5 minute little sequence of what do you think needs to happen?
Awesome question, and the topic of an article I'm writing right now, which is what do you do to meet the disease at the level where it is? And the answer to your question is it depends on the symptoms, depends on the context, depends on the manifestations. It may be just that the dog you're talking about was on dry dog food, and switching into a fresher food, it solves all the problems. It may be a probiotic that balances microbiome and help, but it's basically balance in all ways. And our description of the proper or the best diet is not any particular brand or kind, but as fresh as possible. And that is vitality. Freshness is vital
Mhm.
and varied. So you want to vary the diet because that'll improve the balance of the diet and improve
Mhm.
your pet's love of the diet,
Mhm.
and not too much of any one ingredient moderation. So it's really the same three rules that we all deal with as far as freshness and variety and moderation, the way we eat. So that dog with the bowel issues, I'd probably start with just diet and or probiotics, and more happiness, always more happiness, because that is often all you need to do.
It's of course food is the greatest medicine, and I'm so glad that he emphasized it here. Also, the microflora in the gut is even more important than people thought before. Right? It affects not only digestion but the immune system and the mood and how we act and feel, like how our brain works. Like it's kind of amazing. I like the idea. Well, not I don't necessarily like the idea, but I like hearing about the fact that there's more massive bacteria in our body than our own cells. Have you heard of that? And dogs are probably the same. And
Yep,
we
yep,
often
yep.
ignore the bacterial balance and microflora. So it's nice to hear it from you. Um, Now, tell me, what do you think? What do you think should happen in veterinary medicine in order for us to be able to share the information and kind of collaborate a little more freely? And why does it not happen as much?
Oh my goodness, those are the billion-dollar questions, and there's a lot of things, but I think it does all boil down to one, and that is we need to embrace the energetic framework, the information flow framework of the body. And that's why we're signing people up to become vitality crusaders, evangelists, champions of vitality. Because vitality, as we know in science right now, it's very limited to mitochondrial function, ATP, and other fuel sources for the cells. But things like happiness and sniff walks increase that fuel, improve quality of life, and give the vitality that's beyond the cellular vitality that we know so well. And it's, yeah. So I think that is the one thing I would focus on, is becoming a vitality crusader.
Nice, nice. And do you think there is a reason why there is not as much collaboration among veterinarians? Why is it? Like, I think that it really doesn't happen as much as we need it to happen in order to solve some of the challenges. Maybe you disagree, and I'm happy with it either. I'm just curious what your opinion is.
There's a big disconnect, Peter, and I think, are you referring to the among veterinarians, the lack of communication, or you mean
I
just
would say
among
I would say that
veterinarians and
collaboration may not happen as much as it could, right? Like there are so many people having so many good ideas, and I think one of the I'm gonna say what I feel, and I know I asked a question, and I'm gonna break the rule of waiting patiently for the reply. I think that it's just because we get too busy, and I know, you're. I'm horrible. I'm a horrible human being. Uh, but anyway, I think partially it happens because we are too busy and too stressed
o-
and too traumatized by the practice
overwhelmed.
and so on, and overwhelmed, right? So yeah, it's one. Is there any other reasons why it's not happening as much?
I think the only other reason is that we are trained as veterinarians to have a very focused, you know, fixed mindset that a symptom is treated in this way, a disease is treated in this way, and that we don't frequently take those blinders off and look outside the box
Mm-hmm.
and embrace the wisdom that's out there, but which we're not exposed to. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was in research and science and veterinary medicine for decades before I even knew the stuff was out there. Forget about energy. I didn't even know about fish oils or glucosamine, or the importance of, my mom always focused on diet, but now it's becoming part of medicine. So it's connections. I think that the big answer is the overwhelm, that it's easier and less overwhelming to only focus on what's in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also part of the disconnect, in that the vets that are doing the research, the vets that are in academia. Last year at the ACVIM at the Internal Medicine Conference, there was one veterinarian talking about mitochondrial function and energy and septicemia in horses, bacterial infection.
Mm-hmm.
So it's happening, and it's just, I think, a matter of time.
Um, Do you think that we veterinarians are more solitary, or we like company of other colleagues? Or is it both? As a rule, I don't think that we need to adjust what your feeling is.
I think we're a social group, a social animal, and we like interacting very much. You know, um, we don't get to do it nearly enough. We know that that connection increases longevity, increases wellness, increases, the ability of the body to do its job. That's why the more focused and lab or hospital based we are, the more diseases, the more problems that we can have. And that's why working with animals, and why, you know, every pet parent listening today can go out for a therapeutic sniff walk and just let their dog sniff, not worry about the exercise, but just the sniffing and the connection with the environment
Mhm,
can help their bodies heal, no
mhm,
matter what.
mhm.
And that works for every disease.
I agree. I agree that beings that we are social animals. We veterinarians like to get together, but the demands of the job and life have actually made us not as connected, and it's probably overall it could be said about the whole society and everyone these days. Now I know that there's one word that you have used in your work in holistic actions, and that's BEAM, BEAM, or acronym. It's a word and it's an acronym. What does it stand for?
Well, it stands for behavior, energy, appetite, and mood, which are the externally observable symptoms. And we're taught as vets that symptoms don't exist in dogs and cats, that they have clinical signs, which are clues, but beam is a symptom that you can observe that says, are they in balance? It's like balance beam, or
Mhm.
put the high beams on health. If you focus on beam and not the individual symptoms, so beam is equal to quality of life. You know,
Mhm.
is your animal happy and eating and energetic? With the ear problem, with the skin problem, with the, because
Mhm.
we can, as
Mhm.
veterinarians, we're trained to get rid of those individual symptoms, but if the beam worsens, then we know we're not going in the right direction. So
We're off the mark.
beam
Or-
is,
yeah,
it's like the tractor beam in Star Trek, where we know we're going in the right arc.
I see. Every time people mention Star Trek, I feel totally like, when you have a feeling that you're completely stupid. Like I grew up in the Eastern Bloc, and first we in behind the Iron Curtain, and we did not have Star Trek. And every year or every time people start talking about Star Trek and saying, you remember that and that, and I have no clue what you're talking about. I go, I have to watch the series because it's like it's like me saying that I don't know how to read, right? Like it's so important. So tell me about that. Tell me about the thing that you were just showing.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah,
No, 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 that's okay. It's not
yeah,
your
that was
problem. It's my problem, and I'm just candidly disclosing I'm stupid.
no, you're not.
On some level,
The
we all are
tracked beam
stupid.
was
But
just,
don't take it away from me. I want to be stupid in this part because I wanna know what that thing is that you were showing.
you're, well, first of all, I'd say you need to watch the series. It's not that many hours, and it's just so relevant in a lot of ways because it's about interspecies, uh, connection and getting along with others, and the difference between different, it was way ahead of its time. The tractor beam was just something that the starship is what they were driving around the galaxy in, but they could block their tractor beam on another ship, for example, and it's like a lever. They
I see.
can't get out of the beam
I see. I see. I,
unless they have
I got it.
strong
I got it.
thrusters.
Got it. Got it. I've seen some YouTube little segments and so on, but I really need to up my knowledge on that. So BEAM, it's a behavior, energy, appetite, and mood. And what you're saying, if I can just kind of make sure that I understand it well, if let's say the skin problem is there but the beam is high, then it means that it's actually much less serious than when the skin problem is gone but the beam is worse, which happens with suppressive medicine, right? Like we may suppress the body and the immune system with, let's say, steroids, and the skin problem disappears, but the animal is depressed or is low vitality, doesn't have appetite, or is eating too much, or is just not well. And I really love that you're saying that, because it's like music to my ear to hear that's what you're teaching people, I mean. Anything else
Oh,
that you
wow, thank you. You encapsulated that so beautifully. Thank you.
Oh, well, it's just because you're a good teacher and you explained it well. um, is there anything that you would like people to for sure remember from this session or in general? when it comes to health and the pet well-being? If there's one thing that he'd like to make sure that people will keep in mind, what is it?
No, no, there isn't. Sorry. Yeah, the one.
What
Sorry.
was that? Beg your pardon. I needed to repeat that.
Oh no, I was
Was it
just shaking my
altruistic?
head. Like, yes, there definitely is, and I said no, there isn't. Sorry. The one. Sorry, that was that was a very low form of
No, but
humor.
I
Sorry.
actually didn't. Well, I didn't. I didn't comprehend the word. Maybe you don't want to repeat it.
Yeah, no, the one thing I think is the knowledge that the body is designed, their pets' bodies are designed to heal if we get out of the way. So, if, antis, things that work against the body, are getting in the way, and oftentimes just getting out of the way is all that they need, and never to give up. That where there's life, there's hope, and one of the postulates of the vitality theory is that if they're alive, they can get better.
So basically, what you're saying is that we need to get out of the way of healing, out of the way of nature, out of the way of the natural ability of the body to recover, uh, which is amazing. And I agree with you 100%.
Hmm.
But then every time we say that, I go to another kind of area to say, okay, but there is a point in life where all we all reach, that we all reach, whether it's humans or animals, where life is ending. It's a cycle of life. What do you usually recommend to people who have a pet that is terminally ill or is obviously at the end of their lifespan? What do you recommend them doing? How do they make the best decisions for their pet? How do they make the decision to let their pet go or go on?
I think the answer is quality of life and B.E.A.M.
Mhm.
That if the pet is happy, I mean, this happens to us as veterinarians, all the time, that the pet is happy and eating and maybe can't get up, maybe is vomiting, maybe has another symptom, or like in the case from a couple days ago, a 16-year-old dog with myelopathy that couldn't get around but was still happy and interactive.
Mhm.
When that goes away, I think it's time. If the quality of life is going down, if they're not happy, if they're not eating, if their beam is getting extinguished, then yeah, it might be
Beam,
time.
beam. You know, when I lost my dog Sky at the age of 16, I got the call. I was on a business trip in Norway sourcing omega oils and visiting the factory. And then was a it was a strange trip because I was so happy that I found a good source that is sustainable, and at the same time I got that call. So every time I see Feel Grow Omega, I have a recollection of that call that I got, and then I flew to back to Vancouver from Norway, and I was, I cried the whole trip. People must have thought that a family member, a human family member, died, but it was I was flying back to euthanize my own dog, which is probably the hardest thing that anyone can do. But I also knew that his beam was not there, and that yeah, I could do all these different things, but it would not really that he was asking me to let him go, and I could see that he was ready. And so I really think that this simple four-letter acronym is such a gift to all the dog lovers and cat lovers and pet lovers. And it's like it's so clear and so beautiful. I thank you for it, and yeah, it's a real gift. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our community, with our dog lovers, and also where can they find you when they want to become members of your holistic actions community?
Um, wow. Yeah, no, Peter, you've covered a lot more than I thought we were going to cover today. You went to places where, so thank you for your work, and they can all find me at holisticactions.com. That's really it. I
Great.
spend most of my time on our Q&A forum answering questions, and we do the weekly webinars. So, like, I just got off with the regenerative farmer who's doing one of our upcoming webinars about, how pets, people, and the planet are all connected.
That's really cool. Thank you so much.
So,
Thank you so much for your time.
holisticactions.com.
I think what you're seeing is your reflection, Jeff. And as I said, you're one of the most beautiful and humble human beings and veterinarians that I know. And I'm very grateful for being able to
Mm,
be here together with you and look forward to connecting very soon. Take care.
Thank, thank you, Peter. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, and thank you all.
Thank you. Bye bye.